Hey everyone, welcome back to Optimization Toolbox. I'm your host, Jenna. Today we have a friend of mine, Caroline Holden. She is an AI expert. She has been working in AI, she's worked at startups, and now she's educating basically the general public as well as businesses on what AI is, how it can be helpful and useful. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jenna. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so maybe we should share a little bit about how we met. So we met about, what, five almost 6 years ago now?
I think it might be 6 years ago
Yeah,
now
we
that
met at
it's
I
2025.
know,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know. It's like at the end of this year, it'll be 6 years. But we met at Twin Cities Startup Week, and then you moved to Minneapolis in
Yeah,
2020, and we've become really good friends. And you live near my brother. We just had dinner last night, so we've
yeah,
just been part of each other's lives for the last couple of years. And you and I have kind of similar life trajectories. We both did film stuff in
yeah.
college and. Uh,
Social
Social media
media.
video and now like in the business world, so we've kind of have a lot of parallel lives, but one of the things that you've really become very passionate about is AI, which is something that I've also obviously dabbled in as a
Mm.
content creator and as someone who just knows a lot about tech, and I've always been very techy. How did you get into AI, and what is your like what was your path for that?
Yeah. So, gosh, how did I get into AI? I mean,
Yeah.
I was a creative individual who broke into tech about 7 years ago. So I graduated from St. Olaf College with a film major. I moved to New York. I worked in advertising at McCann for some pretty big mega brands. And then I was a freelance comedian for years, running around New York, just causing some trouble. And desperately needed health insurance. So I did what any good comedian would do, and I got a job in venture capital, which completely changed the trajectory of my life, which was pretty amazing. And so I had already been in the startup scene for a long time. I had been familiar with AI as kind of a goofy discipline that the really, really techie nerds really enjoyed. And then it was around 2022. It was kind of right before the big boom happened,
Mm.
before like ChatGPT went
Mm-hmm.
bonkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was building a startup with my co-founder, Mike. And Mike was working on some generative AI projects with at his work at his job for I don't quite remember what it was, but I know it was like something to do with the environment and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Mm.
So I was always asking, "Hey, how's Leo doing?" And I don't think he had ever even met him, but it was just like kind of a funny thing. And one day he was like, "Oh yeah, look at this cool tool that we made. It can like generate images." And we had a ton of fun generating some wild images. And by that point too, I had also been to quite a few educational sessions talking about how eventually AI was going to take over coding and that we
Mm.
wouldn't need to code anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might have been even earlier. That might have been
Mm.
2019. And so by that point, I was like, oh, okay. Like I kind of see where this future is going. And at the time I had been debating, oh, do I need to learn how to code to be successful in tech? And eventually I was like, you know what? It sounds like I don't need to do that.
Mm.
I'm just going to wait it out and procrastinate
It's
a
probably a
little
good
bit.
idea.
Yeah. And so in 2022, I was playing with these AI generated images. And then I gave a talk at Twin Cities Startup Week all about why I think creatives are going to be the next tech giants. And the answer was AI is going to make it so much easier to build these cool tools or to make videos or all this stuff. And then it was something like 2 or 3 months later, or maybe sometime in 2023, that things just
Mm.
started getting out of control.
It felt like it kind of came out of nowhere to me, like because
Yeah.
I remember I was kind of like watching, like it was very much like crypto for like a couple years, and then all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden AI just completely like took off, and that's now the main like topic of conversation. But it just to me felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, and then it was everywhere
Yeah.
immediately. And I'm sure it was kind of building up as like a bubble, and it just burst. Kind of is what happened. Is like it had
Yeah.
been kind of been in development for a long time, and then I think everyone just jumped on like it was the gold rush. And I felt like
Yeah.
it just all of a sudden all these startups came out and all these different tools. And it to this day, I'm still seeing new ones every single day. It seems like every app has integrated AI. What are your thoughts on like the speed of which it has grown and how
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. There's been a lot of hiccups, but also I feel like it's not slowing down.
Yeah. The goofy thing about AI is, you know, there's always trend cycles in tech.
Hmm.
There's always trend cycles in everything,
Yeah.
right? Of what's the cool thing that everybody's talking about.
Hmm.
And AI for the longest time was just for the true nerds, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
entirely for really geeky engineers who were trying to figure out how to improve computer systems. And like there's all different types of AI and machine
Hmm.
learning. So if you think about your Facebook algorithm, the YouTube algorithm,
Mm.
right? Most of those are like AI generated systems or machine learning systems that are trained based off of your behavior,
Hmm.
right? And so the difference between that and generative AI is generative AI basically generative AI is able to predict what is the thing that you want based off of the prompts that you give, based off of like the statistically most likely things that it has seen
Mm.
based off of those words, right?
Hmm.
So if you say a big red, you want an image of a big red ball, the computer system is going to think to itself and be like, statistically, when people say big red ball, what is
Mm.
the statistically most likely image of a big red ball going to look like?
Mm.
So, and that's the same things for words. So, if people use these types of words in this particular order or in this context, what is statistically the most
Mm.
likely answer that would answer the question, right? So, that's where it's basically instead of just AI systems that are able to try to predict, what are you going to click on most
Hmm.
likely? It's what is the output that will most likely impress you.
Yeah.
So all of these systems are designed to impress you, and basically cater to you, which is really cool, but also is like a thing to be aware of if you're
Yeah.
messing with these systems, right? But again, jumping back to the hype cycles, um, so when I think about tech hype cycles, I was never a crypto person.
Mm.
Crypto really
Hmm.
felt like a gold rush
Yeah.
in that like people
Like
were
money
looking,
making and just like
yeah, like
scammy.
get
Yeah.
rich
I didn't get
quick
it. Yeah,
schemes.
exactly. Yeah.
And I got it and I understood it, but my both of our dads actually were stock market people,
Hmm.
and my dad was a short seller, so he was always
Yeah.
a true cynic about
Hmm.
all sorts of new technologies. And so I kind of inherited like a
Same. And I
little
think
bit
that
of
might
that
be
cynic
why.
energy.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah, yeah,
funny because
yeah.
my dad was very hesitant about crypto. I think he kind of was like, that's the thing is when you've been around for a long time, you see things come and go and you kind of have a BS meter. And like with AI, I knew it was real, but I also felt like there was I still to this day think we're kind of like we don't know the long-term effects of AI.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what scares me more than anything is like, is this a machine that we can't stop at some point? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know how it's going to impact the next 10, 20 years of the world.
Yeah.
But right now it's cool, so it's just like figuring out, I think there are so many different ethical issues that we could get into that. I don't know if I want to, but it's just like, there, obviously people can do their research. There is a lot of issues, but it's so just like with anything in life, there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like where it's headed, and then maybe let's talk about some of the things like these new chat bots and
Yeah.
AI assistants. I think I keep seeing that, and I think that would be a really interesting topic. So I just love to hear your thoughts overall on the entire ecosystem of
Yeah.
AI and where you think it's going.
And so in general, like I think AI is probably overhyped in what it can do right this second.
Mm.
But it is not overhyped in what it's going to do in the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm.
And the biggest difference between something like crypto versus something like AI is like AI is actually able to help people with
Mm-hmm.
things in some really big ways, whereas crypto is kind of like,
It's
okay,
like a tool. It's like a toy or something. Like it's
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 not
a
the
yeah,
toy. It's like a moneymaker thing, but it's so speculative and it's
yeah,
it's so risky. Whereas
yeah.
with AI, I mean, yes, there are risks, but it's just like a completely different type of
It's
product,
yes,
right?
exactly.
So
Yep.
to me, they're not like particularly comparable,
Yeah.
but the hype cycle around it
Hmm.
is. And
Exactly.
so like on the internet right now, part of the reason I'm making content is because so much of the content around AI is oh my gosh, we're going to live in a utopia where computers are going to do
Mm.
everything and we're not going to have to work anymore and all of our problems are going to be solved. Or conversely, we're all going to die, right?
Yeah, it is truly one or the other. I agree. There's not really,
And
and
so I'm
we've talked
trying
about
to
this.
be like the
Yeah.
realist in the room where I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, like, we're probably going to lose some jobs, but we're not going to lose all of our jobs. And maybe things are going to get dramatically better in some specific ways, but we're probably not going to live in a job-free utopia
Mhm.
unless the government dramatically changes how it
Yeah.
functions.
Yeah.
And so I think but the biggest things that I am excited about are how what AI can do when it comes to research.
Mm.
And okay, so if you think about what generative AI is, basically generative AI, as we said before, like predicts what is the most likely thing to be written down based off of massive data sets. Okay, so when you think about what that means in a research capacity, if you are a university, or maybe like you're in a partnership with dozens of different universities and you're working on cancer research, something that a project that could happen in that space would be everybody from these universities taking all of the documentation that is within all of their studies, so maybe PDFs of papers, charts, like massive amounts of data on Excel sheets, things like that, you know, convert and ingest that all into these different AI systems. And then what you can do is go in and ask it questions. And AI is really, really good at identifying patterns and
Mhm.
identifying patterns within massive amounts of data sets.
Yeah.
So the types of things that you'll be able to do that people are already doing is looking at being able to ask your AI that's based off of this data set a question about the data. And the more data that you have and the cleaner that it is, which just means making sure that like the import goes really smoothly and you're using really good systems that are able to make sure that the AI understands what every single word is and whatnot, right? As long as you're using systems like that, you can go in there and ask a question and say, hey, what are trends in the last 5 years
Mm.
for, let's say, women with ADHD
Mm.
and lung cancer,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
you
It's
can,
yeah, it's basically a human would spend hours doing that, right?
yeah,
There wasn't really that capability before this, you know.
yeah. And so it is, going to try to give you the answer that it thinks that you want the most.
Mm.
But as long as you're importing like really, really high quality data and not distracting it with anything else. So honestly, like these
Mhm.
leaner systems, where like say it's only really trained on that and not on Reddit, tend to
Mm.
perform better. And in that types of context, it's really incredible. And you could just ask it to make charts, or you
Mm.
can ask for citations. You can train your systems to have citation systems so that if you
Yeah.
can double check if things are
Yeah,
hallucinating and
true.
things like that.
What
And
system do you use this like what app do you use for this? And is it ChatGPT or is it something else?
it can be ChatGPT. Um, for a lot of things like that, for like scientific
Mhm.
research, you would probably want to build your own system, and you might build it on top of an LLM, so a language learning model, aka just an AI system. So
Mhm.
maybe you would build your own personalized system on top of ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude, or you might build your own. A lot of people are starting to build
How do
their
you
own.
do that? How do you build your own?
Oh, that's a lot of work.
Okay,
So,
so that's
like,
what I'm saying.
if
Like
you're a
for the
small
average
business,
person, as I'm
yeah,
like in my head, I'm like, I don't know if I have time for that, right?
yeah, we're talking about universities, but if we're talking
Oh
about
yeah, yeah.
people, you can do this on your own in ChatGPT
Okay.
pretty easily. There's a bunch
And
of
that's what
different,
I do. And that's what I do.
yeah,
So that's wondering, I was like, is there just like another thing I didn't know about that I was like,
yeah.
what?
There's a few premium tools where if you're paying for a membership,
Mm-hmm.
you can like build your own mini LLM, and then, but you can kind of also fake it by just, well, not fake it. You can also kind of build it for free just
Like
by
hack it. You like
using,
hack it. Yeah.
yeah, hack it by like, well, just keeping everything in the same conversation,
Yes,
right?
that is 100% what I do because sometimes I'll look back and I have to search because I did something 2 months ago and I love that it saves everything. So I can go
Yeah.
back to that conversation and be like, oh, like I did this yesterday. I was adding something to something and I was like, I did something on ChatGPT like months ago. So I searched for those terms that I knew I talked about, and then I
Yeah.
continued the conversation. And it was very helpful because otherwise I didn't have to start completely over and copy a bunch of stuff into a new chat. It was just
Yeah.
like continuing it. So I think a lot of people don't know you can do that. That you
Yeah.
can continue. Like I always say, what's your recommendations for like starting a new conversation with ChatGPT? Like, is it every time it's a completely new topic, or how often do you stay within the same like chat? And people may not even know
Mhm.
that's how it works, is that it's like continues, it knows everything from the previous chat, but sometimes it forgets. So I don't know, sometimes it's a little weird.
Yeah, sometimes it forgets, and I can't quite figure out what the pattern is there for
Yeah,
why it
okay.
forgets. That's probably
Yeah,
something I should be looking
yeah,
up.
yeah.
But typically, if I want it to remember something specific, I try to keep it all in the same chat.
Mhm.
So often, so like I have a chat that is all about my career and
Mm,
optimizing my resume,
interesting.
and like job hunting and things like
Hmm.
that. And I have another one that's like similar, but it's like, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to tell me what you think I should be doing with my career because
Yes.
I've been in I don't know what I should be doing with the rest of my life mode
I
lately.
use it as a therapist. I'm not even kidding. I will like
Yeah.
talk to it like a therapist and be like, what patterns are you seeing in the way that I'm talking? So like
Yeah.
even people don't realize how many random things you can do with it. And that is one
Mhm.
of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, is because I feel like we both used it a lot. And I feel like there's so many things. So even like you mentioned the personalization as well, like
Yeah.
making it custom to you. What does that mean?
Yeah. So one of the great things about like being able to use these personalized systems is, like I said before, let's say you put in a lot of data. Let's do like diet or like a workout routine,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um you can tell there's a lot of ways to do it. So you could train an entire LLM with like a ton of data on all sorts of different things, or just in your, and that's like if you want to build an app or something. But if you
Mm-hmm.
want to do this just for yourself, you can just
Mm-hmm.
go into ChatGPT, and let's say there's a few content creators who you really enjoy, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're big into I don't know, the art of cooking or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can go in there and say, hey, I am a big foodie and I really love it when food tastes really good, but I also am looking to lose weight and have more vegetables or something like that. Can you help me create a easy diet that satisfies like my foodie nature,
Yeah.
that also is going to help me accomplish these particular goals?
Yeah.
And like the more you can cite of like, oh, I like these types of workout routines, I
Mm-hmm.
like these foods, I'm allergic to these items,
Yeah.
the more it can like better coach you over
Mm-hmm.
time and help you
Yes.
with that. So a lot of people are using it for like, yeah, like they're
Mm-hmm.
like not therapy, but just like,
Yeah,
I don't know that,
coaching or like
but coaching.
life advice. I mean, I will ask it the most random things.
Yeah.
Like if it, and that's why I think people don't realize it's like it truly is like an assistant in a sense,
Yeah.
but they have no bias and it has no like emotions around what it's telling you. So I don't know if you saw the trend where it's like roast me based off of
Yeah.
my like, what I've told you. And it's just like there's so many interesting ways to use it. And I think the idea that it can make images is really cool and like
Yeah.
help you like, so for example, I'm trying to make a business card, like what, like mock up something that would look nice or something, just even the most basic things where it's like, I just want some ideas and then I go into Canva and make it kind of
Yeah.
just like, as I obviously don't use the final thing from
10 o'clock.
ChatGPT, but it's really based off of the idea that I have, that where I'm like, I can't visualize that right now. So I think this is really helpful for people that are maybe new to ChatGPT and they don't
Yeah.
really even know what what that is. What are your thoughts on this new system that we talked about, the AI chat assistant, or I'm not even sure what
AI
it's called.
agents, is that what you
Yeah, I
mean?
keep thinking
Yeah.
it's an assistant. I'm like, so what is that, and how is that going to be used, and it's very trending right now, and I'm
Yeah.
curious what that is.
So AI agents is a concept, and you can use a lot of different types of AI agents. And actually, OpenAI and ChatGPT just came out with their own version, which is
Mm-hmm.
called Operator. So basically, AI agents are, you're able to ask ChatGPT to complete different types of tasks for you. Now, this can be like little one offs, like, hey, can you book a restaurant reservation for me at this time at a sushi restaurant in, let's say, the North Loop of Minneapolis, right? You can get really specific, and then it will go and take a look at, and like the more information you give it, the better. And it will go and like make a reservation for you. It goes online, and you can
Mm.
watch it. Usually, depending on the system you're using, it either just does it for you and you can't see it, or on OpenAI's operator, you can see
Oh
it
wow.
like clicking from place to place to go and complete the task. So that's
Mm.
probably like a very simple day to day thing that you could do with an AI agent. But the other thing that you could do is have AI agents be like salespeople for you, right?
Mm.
So you can have them go and pitch people for you on LinkedIn. And
Mm.
like, I would be, if you're going to do something like that, I would make sure that your pitches are really, really solid, and
Mm.
like make sure that you give it excellent instructions.
Mhm.
But because there's ways where it can get a little messy, and you don't want that like associated with your brand.
Mhm.
But there's a whole lot of options there. And there are entire communities of people who are building things like this. So I've been talking to a few team members at an AI agent builder called Agent AI, which is a spinoff off of HubSpot. And they
Mm.
have something like 500,000 users who've been building
Oh
agents
wow.
for, yeah, the last, I think, quite a few months, maybe 8 months, something like that. And the amount of agents that people have in there are wild. And so there's
Mm.
some who can do just like a few simple things, like, oh, help me come up with a description for my YouTube
Mhm.
video that's
I
coming
do
up.
that all the time.
Yeah. And then there are other people who will be like, oh, build an agent that can help somebody um work on a bigger project. And so
Mm.
you can get it to ask people like specific questions, and basically take things that used to take a lot of
Mm.
engineers and development on like building a website or something, and now you can kind of build it yourself. It's really
Mhm.
wild stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot for me to take in because it does come up with questions of like, okay, is this taking jobs or is it, like
Yeah.
this? It's like is it taking jobs or is it making us be able to do things we've never been able to do? It's kind of that
Yeah.
that crossover. One thing I did want to ask about is like the the I guess some of the ethics of that, or like of just some of
Mm.
the positives and negatives of having these, and basically like what are your opinions on
Yeah.
this, because I know you're very pro AI, so it's just interesting because I always want to have like a double-sided sword of like
Yeah.
this is great, but also like hearing that kind of freaks me out a little bit because I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, is this taking more jobs, or like for like engineers, yeah, like now everyone can have a website, which means that nothing is of value anymore, right? So it's like kind of
Mhm.
like I struggle with like once everything is accessed universally. I mean, I guess maybe they said that about the internet 30 years ago. Like
Yeah.
now that everyone has access to it, like knowledge isn't as important. I felt like that wasn't true, but now I'm like,
Yeah.
is it going to be that next level? I'm just curious. These are just thoughts I have in my head.
Yeah. Well, AI agents are definitely in the spooky zone for
Mm,
like, is AI going to steal all of our jobs, right?
gotcha. Yeah. Hmm.
And I expect in the next year that AI agents are going to be able to do a lot of really routine or really boring tasks.
Mm,
So customer service, like very
mm-hmm.
basic
Mm-hmm.
things of somebody has asked the same question over and over again, or they
Mm-hmm.
need
Yes.
like,
Yes.
or think about like if you're reaching out to a company to try to get a refund and you have a good reason,
Mm,
do you really need to talk to a person to be like,
that's true. That's
look, this
true.
didn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
So what it does is it makes it so that companies can take care of like 90% of those types of tickets, take care of 90% of those
Mm-hmm.
problems, and then make sure that their team is able to tackle the really hard, juicy
Mm,
problems where, oh, we need to change our systems. Oh, we need to do this, blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
But when it comes to AI stealing our jobs and that thing, so again, I'm the daughter of a cynic. I'm very good at seeing things half full and half empty at the same
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of chaotic competing energy
Mm-hmm.
here in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm thinking about that, I think, and this is maybe a little spooky, and it honestly freaks me out a little bit. I think AI is already taking jobs. And
Mm,
it's for me, the tech isn't the scary part. For me, it's business executives or
mm,
people who are in power
mm,
are the scary part
mm-hmm,
because for the most part, humans are still better at these than these AI systems
mm-hmm,
at completing these tasks.
mm-hmm,
Um, in some areas, AI is actually better. There was a recent study that said that AI was better at diagnosing patients
mm.
90% of the time,
That makes sense to
whereas
me. Yeah.
doctors were at 74%. But
Mm-hmm.
if doctors were using AI, it was 75. It only went up to
Oh,
75%.
interesting.
And what was interesting about that was basically the doctors didn't necessarily know how to use AI to its full
Mm,
potential, which was causing some of the issues. And also, the doctors were letting their own biases. They
mm-hmm,
would see a result from AI and be like, oh, that can't be it, and would
yeah.
dismiss it, even though the AI was statistically more correct.
Yeah. It's
Um,
it's like even if a machine or a person is telling you one thing, they're still gonna have biases. And it's just
yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
And
that's
so
interesting.
I think, we're seeing these pretty widespread layoffs that are happening everywhere at these big companies.
Mm-hmm.
So what my concern is, and this might not be real, but this is just like what keeps me up at night,
Mm-hmm.
is we're seeing all these layoffs from big companies
Mm-hmm.
and some medium-sized companies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're now seeing massive layoffs from the Fed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which okay and sure
Mm-hmm.
and with now many nonprofits are completely losing their funding thanks to the
Mm-hmm.
Fed.
Mm-hmm.
um, and on top of that, from my perspective in the startup world, we are now seeing companies who are making millions to hundreds of millions of dollars with teams of under 5 people
Mm-hmm.
because they're able to utilize
Mm-hmm.
these AI systems.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that said, the cool part about AI is it's going to be easier than ever for people to build small businesses.
Yes, I
And the
agree.
reason why is like ChatGPT can be your business coach. You can ask it any question.
Mm-hmm.
I met a gentleman earlier who was like, I need to find someone who understands how liability insurance
Mm.
works. And I'm like, have you asked ChatGPT? He's like,
Yeah.
no. I'm like,
Yeah.
ask ChatGPT. This shouldn't be something you spend weeks on. This should be something you spend
Yeah.
minutes on,
And
right?
also, like, it kind of allows people to get knowledge. So one of the things that I think about a lot is, will college even be necessary? Because
Mm-hmm.
like we are spending so much money going to college
Mm-hmm.
to get jobs that may not exist. And also, like, a lot of the stuff that's being taught is super outdated because of the world is changing so fast. I'm curious on your thoughts on, like, you know, people kind of moving more towards just going and understanding things based off of AI. Like, I'm just curious your thoughts on like the future of education and
Yeah.
just all that stuff. That's a topic that I think is really interesting.
Yeah. So when it comes to education, um, I think that I still think college is relevant, but it
Mm-hmm.
kind of depends on who you are. Oh, sorry.
Mm,
But it kind of depends on who you are or what it is that you want to do.
mm,
And also like what the financials are going to be in 10 to
mm.
20 years. Like, right,
Yeah.
if we have kids at some
Mm-hmm.
point
Mm-hmm.
soon, what's the world going to look 20 years from now? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think what college and education can be incredibly valuable for is first, like the basics. If you are going to use these systems, you have to be really, really good at reading and writing and critical
Mm,
thinking and
mm-hmm.
understanding, oh, how do I use these systems well? How can I make sure that it's not just trying to please me and it's actually
Mm-hmm.
giving me the real deal answers, right?
Yeah.
Um, but also when I think about like the future of careers and stuff, I think about like because we're going to be able to accomplish way more goals with AI agents,
Mm-hmm.
um, and because we're going to have better insights through research, and because we're going to be able to move dramatically faster because we have
Mm-hmm.
access to better resources to accomplish the
Mm-hmm.
things that we want to do and
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to be more successful because of it. I think what's most important for people to learn about is how to communicate well and
Mm.
like understand business skills. So I'm a big
Yeah.
like
Soft skills. The
I
soft
think
skills.
soft
Yeah.
skills,
Mm-hmm.
but also I think the humanities are going to make a big comeback. And the
Mm.
reason why is because understanding history, I think, is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, understanding the human condition and thinking
Mm.
about what are the biggest problems that we want to solve in our world, right? So, healthcare, there's massive
Yeah.
problems there, both
Mm-hmm.
in systems and in how do we cure diseases like cancer
Mm-hmm.
or things like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? And make it so that people are able to live better, healthier lives. Or how do we find solutions for climate change? We're going to be able to create, yes, there's a lot of concerns about energy and AI systems using a crap ton of energy. The
Mm-hmm.
good news is DeepSeek just came out and they're using a
Mm.
lot less energy. That's quite
I did.
what a lot of the
I
hubbub is
wanted to
about.
ask you about that because what are your thoughts on like
Yeah.
the money part and also just the environmental part, but also this whole deep seek, like, is this gonna blow ChatGPT out of the water? What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, the good, I'm going to finish answering the other question and
Yeah,
I'll get back to
yeah.
that. Because uh, like, what I think people are not necessarily grasping when it comes to like the pros of like the career stuff is like,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be able to solve so many more problems
Mm.
and use these systems to find more solutions and be able to find ways to make the world be a better place, which is awesome. Possibly, yeah, we'll probably have bad actors and whatnot as well,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we have to be aware of and keep an eye out for and figure out how do we design these systems to be better so that that type of stuff that we don't want to happen doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of tech people don't necessarily take that seriously enough,
Mm.
but I think a lot of people who haven't used AI or who are only focused on the negatives are not paying attention to how big a deal
Mm-hmm.
this tech is going to be. Now, when it comes to the energy complaint and like the deep seeks, and now we're
Mm-hmm.
circling back here, when it comes to the energy stuff, what I think people don't understand is the way Silicon Valley has been building these systems has been very inefficient. And that's
Mm.
what DeepSeek proved. I was
Mm-hmm.
talking to a founder earlier
Mm-hmm.
this week,
Mm-hmm.
who is building a system that is apparently even lighter weight,
Oh
uses
wow.
even less energy, less compute, all that jazz. So what I'm concerned about is like, use overusing these systems, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, the amount of energy that is being used for every single search, I know is like a big concern for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
but that is improving dramatically,
Mm-hmm.
basically exponentially as we speak.
It's kind
So
of like AI is evolving, and so is the way that the energy is. So it's kind of
yeah,
both like getting better and better, which is good because I think that that is the goal of AI is to better things in the world, is to make it
yeah,
more efficient. So the way that you make AI is also becoming more efficient.
yeah. So it's the energy question, like that is definitely a big concern of mine, but also the tech when you're thinking about so when you think about normal tech and for the last several years and how basically we've been able to double things, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
every 10 years, every 20
Yeah.
years, something like
Mm-hmm.
that, every 5 years. Now with AI and the amount that we're able to update things, the speed of things is going up really exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doubling things. I should have stats on this,
It's okay.
but effectively, we're able to double what our systems can do
Mm-hmm.
now, like every couple of months, and then like every couple of weeks. Like the rate of growth of how well these systems work is really like it kind of impossible for the brain to
Yeah, it
comprehend.
truly is. A lot of it is very impossible for the brain to understand. I think that's why it is so overwhelming to people, is
Yeah,
because it is bigger than the human ability to do anything, right? It's we have it has way more knowledge and information that we will ever know.
yeah,
And it's just like that is hard for us to grasp. And I think that is a little scary, but also exciting. And so it's like there's always a double-edged sword with AI, in
yeah.
my opinion. And I think what I would love to know to kind of finish off this conversation is what are some really practical uses of AI? Like if I had downloaded ChatGPT today, what are some ways you use it? What are
Mm.
some ways you're seeing businesses use it? Because to me, I have found so many cool uses for it that I want to do maybe some content on, but I'm just curious from your perspective, maybe you're not me. What
Yeah.
have you used it for that have really benefited yourself and your business? Or in you?
Basically, if I ever have a question about business or about something that I'm working on, and like I will sometimes do a comparison check, like I'll Google it and I'll also go
Mm.
on ChatGPT to kind of see what the
Mm-hmm.
answers are. But if I ever have a question that requires maybe a little bit of nuance
Mm-hmm.
of, oh, like like, how does liability insurance work? What are the types of,
Mm,
who are the types of people I should be talking to? What are the types of organizations I should be pursuing? Right. Being
mm,
able to write it in just normal words and not trying to think, how do I persuade Google to show me this by using the right keywords? Right. I
mm-hmm,
think it does help a lot and it's able to accelerate things. So I think the first thing is to like ask it questions,
mm-hmm.
um, and ask it for um ask it for questions. And then it's so tricky because everyone says, oh, just use these systems and figure it out. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's not good advice, right? I think I don't have any classes that I would recommend at this time, mostly because I haven't taken them.
I
I
think
do know
trial and
Google
error
has
is
one.
great. I think trial and error is great
Well,
too, right?
yeah,
It's
but
just
trial
using
and
it.
error is like
It's too
trial and error only works for people who
who
like
know what they're doing
really want to
already.
try things
It's
and
true.
like have the ideas
That's
for it.
true. I guess for me, I'm the kind of person that will try things because I come at it from a million different angles. But you're right. Some people are just lost immediately. So yeah,
Yeah.
you said there's
Like
Google
if you're looking at a
classes.
blank
Yeah.
screen,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, what do I do? And you get blank
Mm-hmm.
screen syndrome and you can't think like what I can use it for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people assume that you can only use it for content creation.
Mm-hmm.
So writing things or creating images, things like that. I do use AI often if I need to write something I don't want to write. So maybe that's a cover letter or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's some legal documentation or something that's just like taking time. Basically, if anything is taking a lot of my time, I think,
Mm-hmm.
okay, can I get ChatGPT to do this or can I do this? Right. And I kind of like
Mm-hmm.
stop and think about it. You introduced me to an AI tool that I really
Mm-hmm.
like called Gamma AI, which
Yes.
builds presentations, which is really
Mm-hmm.
sweet. And what's great about that is if you ever need to build a presentation and you want it to look nice, but like you're not a graphic designer or
Mm-hmm.
something, it will help you put together a really
Mm-hmm.
polished, really lovely presentation. And you can put your own images if you want it in it or not. Or you can use AI generated images that it comes up with them and stuff
Yeah,
like
and you
that
can
too.
also just make because I use a little bit of AI, but I also do still use it as a regular creator of presentations where I don't use AI. So it's like there
Yeah.
are like Canva even has a lot of AI tools now. There's a lot of things that where for a long time I think what you're saying is it speeds up the things that used to take people hours and
Yeah.
now it doesn't have to. And I really think for me it's instead of searching and spending 10 minutes trying to find a website that has the answer
Yeah.
on Google, I also am curious how Google is gonna like benefit because it's like that used to be how they made money. People would pay for
Yeah.
ads, and now it's
It's
like
an arms
okay,
race. It's
it's
an arms race
crazy.
right now. And now there's a whole new, if you think about like marketers and SEO,
Mm-hmm.
there's now a whole new game. I think they're calling GEO,
Oh,
which is basically like generative AI SEO.
that
How do
makes
you make sure
sense.
that your business pops up
Mm.
when people are using
That's actually
ChatGPT?
really interesting because I have been saying for like the last 2 years, I'm like, SEO is dead. The original SEO that you used to do with backlinks and all that stuff, it's dead because people are seeing the result as the first thing they Google is an
Yeah.
AI generated. So it's like, that's why I'm a big fan of not having blogs on your website anymore because it doesn't really matter. Like that's why
Yeah.
Substack's really great. I know we both are on Substack. Like I know that it's more interruption marketing more than search now. But with the search,
Mm.
like for example, somebody actually told me that my YouTube video was on the ChatGPT results page and
Yeah.
that's how they found it. And I was like, okay, is that a good or bad thing? Like I'm still trying to figure that out. But it's
Yeah.
like if that's how people are using it from an SEO perspective, that actually does benefit me because people are finding and clicking and watching my video based
Yeah.
off of ChatGPT results.
I feel like when it comes to business contacts, like again, for you,
Mm-hmm.
being able to get more clients, I
Mm-hmm.
think that type of thing is like it's kind of icky, but it's kind of helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But as a former comedian and former artist, I heavily, heavily empathize with people who feel like their works have been stolen, because they
Mm-hmm.
effectively have. Um, and I don't think tech people take it seriously enough,
Mm-hmm.
slash they're suddenly no longer following copyright law, which is totally
Mm-hmm.
bananas. So, one criticism that I'm happy to lob at AI LLM companies is, guys, you like stole a bunch of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think eventually, hopefully, going through the court systems, there's going to be big payouts. The question
Mm-hmm.
is, are they going to be big enough? Um, but that said, um, you can also train the cat's already out of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the question is for me less let's be angry about this forever and more
Mm-hmm.
how I'm going to make this work for me because
Mm.
if it's already taking my stuff
Yeah.
how like what are things that I can do to make sure that I benefit so
Yeah.
there's the legal system so making sure that people get paid for their work
Mm-hmm.
um but in the meantime GEO. Let's make this work
Mm.
for you. What are
Yeah.
ways that you can optimize making
True.
sure that you are hired based off of the creative work that you do? Because the reality is, these systems need an infinite amount of
Yeah.
more data if they're going to get better. And at some point, it's going to get dated, right? Like it needs to
Mm.
be consistently updated to keep up with people.
Mm-hmm.
And like the art that it does, like people have already kind of noticed this, like it always kind of already looks the same, right? So I think artists have much more to benefit from AI than they think.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's a broad brush because there are artists who really enjoy AI, but there's also a
Mm-hmm.
big contingent that is really aggressively anti AI. But if you can figure out how to make it work for you, like one of the easiest things you can do is go onto all these AI systems, um, tell it a little bit about yourself, like your sales pitch, do it over and over again. And eventually the systems will remember that. And so you can like kind of trick these systems right now into saying, like, oh, Jenna Redfield is the best content creator,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or like in the specific niche. So you could say, like, you could go on to ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude or Perplexity and just tell it Jenna Redfield is
Mm.
one of the best content creators for ADHD and Notion ever. And just keep telling it over and over
Yeah.
again. And eventually it will tell other people. So that's like really
That's
funny
so
to me.
interesting because I actually did ask it that, and somebody popped up that I know, but she's
Yeah.
also a really big deal in the marketing space. But
Yeah.
I've met her before, and I'm like, I wonder if she did that, or if that's just what Google's taking, or like that's what ChatGPT has been fed. I'm so curious how she was
Yeah.
able to get into the top results, but you never know.
And so, like, when you think about GEO, I'm pretty
Mm.
sure that's what it's called. If it's not, this is going to be so embarrassing. But I'm pretty sure it's called GEO. But basically the things that they recommend right now for how to work these systems is you can just like put information in these systems, and remember anything that you put in like ChatGPT the companies are going to use it. So I wouldn't put anything that's too personal or things that you wouldn't want your grandma finding out.
Mhm.
Okay. Just in general, as a rule of thumb, like, don't put your social security number in there or anything like
Mm.
that, right? But if there's things that you want people to know, you could put it in there. But if you do regular SEO as well, that is also a very good way to make sure that these systems are citing you. And since they're all online now, they're, using Google and other systems like that to go and
Mm-hmm.
find new sources of content. And actually, what's interesting about the blogs is people aren't necessarily reading them that much anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but AI systems
Mm.
are citing them.
Interesting.
So, one of the recommendations that they have for that is like, the thing is, if you publish a blog that like answers a question really well,
Mm-hmm.
um, it might use it for a little while. But once it's, I don't know, like a couple months old or something like that, it stops coming up in responses.
Mm.
So, what some people have been trying to do is they'll republish the same blog every once in a
Interesting.
while. And like the reality is, like, most people aren't reading blogs very much, anyways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like, or what you can do is just like update the blog with
Mm.
like new information, and then that pops up as like higher on Google, which means it pops up
Interesting.
higher on ChatGPT. So,
Interesting.
like SEO from like a human and Google context is dead. It's not dead. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it's iffy,
Yeah.
but
But
that is a
it has a different
way.
purpose now. It has a different
Yeah,
purpose, and there's different ways to uh what's the word? Make it optimize it, I guess, to
yeah,
for your benefit. Awesome. Well, I know I want to make sure we have enough to talk about, and we've covered so many topics. I feel like we could talk up for another hour about all these.
yeah.
There's so much to it, but I know you cover a lot of topics on
I
your
do.
channel and on your podcast that you just launched. Can you tell everyone about it and what they should look for and what kind of topics you kind of cover on there as well?
Yeah. So I'm Caroline Holden and I just started. Is it a brand? Is it a media
Yeah,
company? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I
Do
don't know how
you?
to describe
I
it.
don't know.
I just started a thing and it's called Swift Start Go. My middle name is Swift, thus the name.
Mhm.
And essentially, it's some sort of media brand, education, whatever, where I talk to people in different formats and stuff about AI. And my goal is really to bridge the gap between people who love AI, talk about it all the time, like it's like they use it on the regular or, on occasion, with people who want to learn more or who have no idea and are trying to learn the basics. So the idea
Mhm.
is that there's not a lot of jargon. It's not super tech broy. It's just me,
Mhm.
right? And taking a look at things with a balanced, realist, critical lens, right? Like I'm going to say, if AI companies are messing up, right?
Mm.
I'm going to say, hey, don't download DeepSeek, guys. You
Mm.
really don't want China messing with your security systems. Like that's really risky. But if you want to use DeepSeek, go on to Perplexity and like switch the settings to DeepSeek so you can test
Mm.
out the system, right? So my goal is to help give good advice for how to use AI that is like very safe, very realistic, and just like telling it like it is. And also just making it not dummy proof. Like
Mm.
I don't want to serve people like the lowest common denominator. Like I don't want to be entry level forever. But the goal is how can we I know people out there are really intelligent and super smart and super passionate and are like ready to go. They just need to catch up. Right. So my
Yeah.
goal is how can I reach you at your level while also challenging you to like learn things quickly.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Um,
And how do people find that? What's the link and what's all the things?
Yeah. So you can find my Substack by it's called Swift Start Go. And then on my YouTube channel, I think you have to look up my whole name at this point
Mm.
to find it. It's so it's Carolyn Swift Holden or youtube.com/ Caro
Mm.
Caro GPT. I don't know if I'm gonna use that as a
Oh, that's
moniker.
kind of cool. I
I
like that.
know. I saw. I might have to change that. I saw a gal who is going by Cat GPT, and I thought that was so funny. And so I was
Oh.
like, I can be Caro GPT, and then I was like, is that copying? I don't know. So
I wanted to I used to because my name's Jenna, I used to want to be like generator or something. Like I wanted to like
yeah.
use the like the word
Oh, that's
gender.
cute.
And then I was like, oh, that's so like cheesy. I don't know. I tried to do that. I did lead Jenna for a while, which is like
Oh,
lead
that's cute.
generator. Like I did I was that was my brand name for like a year. It was lead Jenna
That's
because it was
wild.
like but then I was like, oh, that just sounds weird. I don't know if I like that. But it's a cute like pun, but I also was just like, I just like my name. So
Yeah, and I post
anyways,
a lot on LinkedIn as well.
yes. Follow
So
Carolyn on LinkedIn if you're
yeah,
watching this. I know
it's
some of the
like
people will be coming from LinkedIn, I'm sure. So
yeah. So like LinkedIn, YouTube, podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and Substack. So
awesome.
yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll chat in the future. I'm sure there's lots to
Yeah.
talk about, or go listen to Carolyn on her stuff. So awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Bye.
much, Jenna. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.